My best friend stole my girlfriend and laughed. You're too boring to keep her anyway. I stayed silent, but when their relationship imploded, my phone exploded with 42 missed calls. I'd always trusted Alex. We'd been best friends since high school, partners in crime, roommates in college, and even co-workers at the same tech startup. He was the life of the party, the guy everyone loved, while I was the quiet one, the reliable one. When I started dating Emily, I thought my life was finally coming together. She was everything I'd ever wanted: smart, kind, and beautiful. I introduced her to Alex almost immediately, thinking he'd be happy for me. At first, he was. "You're a lucky guy, Mark," he'd say, clapping me on the back. "She's amazing." But then, something changed. Emily started acting distant, canceling our dates, dodging my calls. I didn't think much of it. She was busy with work, or so she said. Until the day I saw them together. I'd gone to Alex's apartment to surprise him with tickets to a basketball game. But when he opened the door, Emily was there, wearing his shirt, her hair messy, her face flushed. I stood there, frozen, as Alex smirked. "Oh, come on, Mark. You're too boring to keep her anyway." Emily didn't say a word. She just looked away, her face red with shame. I didn't argue. I didn't scream. I just turned around and walked out. But as I drove home, my mind was racing. If Alex thought he could take everything from me, he had no idea who he was dealing with. The next few weeks were a blur. Alex and Emily flaunted their new relationship, posting photos of their amazing life together. Luxury vacations, fancy dinners, and cozy nights in. Meanwhile, I was struggling to keep it together. I'd always been the quiet one, the reliable one, but now I felt like I was drowning. I couldn't focus at work, and my boss started noticing. "Mark, you've been off lately. Is everything okay?" I lied and said I was fine, but the truth was, I wasn't. I tried to talk to Emily, to understand what had happened. "Emily, I need to know why." She looked at me, her eyes filled with pity. "Mark, you're a great guy, but you're just too predictable. Alex is exciting. He makes me feel alive." I didn't respond. I just walked away, my fists clenched so tight my nails left crescent-shaped marks in my palms. But the worst part? The way Alex treated me at work. He'd always been the charismatic one, the guy everyone loved. But now he was downright cruel. He'd make snide comments during meetings, mocking my ideas and taking credit for my work. "Come on, Mark, keep up," he'd say, laughing as the rest of the team joined in. I felt like I was drowning. But then, something clicked. If Alex thought he could take everything from me, he was about to learn a hard lesson. I didn't confront Alex right away. Instead, I played the long game. I needed to make sure that when I struck, it would be devastating. I started by reaching out to an old college friend, Sarah, who worked in cybersecurity. She'd always been a whiz with computers, and I knew she could help me uncover the truth about Alex's shady dealings. "Mark, this is risky," she said when I explained the situation. "If Alex finds out what you're doing, he could make your life even harder." I nodded. "I know. But I can't let him get away with this. He's not just hurting me, he's hurting everyone around him." Sarah agreed to help, and within days, she'd uncovered something shocking. "Mark, Alex has been embezzling funds from the company for months. He's been using fake invoices, shell companies, the works. And it's not just small amounts, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars." I felt a mix of anger and satisfaction. This was bigger than I thought. Alex wasn't just a thief, he was a fraud. I thanked Sarah and got to work. I needed to gather as much evidence as possible. Emails, financial records, internal documents, anything that could prove what he was doing. But I didn't act yet. I wanted to see how far he'd go. Alex, meanwhile, was getting bolder. He started posting on social media about his unstoppable rise, tagging investors and celebrities in every post. "So grateful for my amazing team. Together, we're changing the world." The comments were full of praise. Visionary. The next Steve Jobs. I just smiled. Let them enjoy their moment. It wouldn't last long. Alex and Emily were getting sloppy. They thought they were untouchable, but their arrogance was their downfall. One night, I got a tip from a former coworker who'd been fired for asking too many questions. "Mark, you need to see this." Alex has been funneling money into offshore accounts. And Emily? She's in on it too. I didn't waste any time. I started compiling everything into a single file. Emails, financial records, photos, videos, it was all there. A roadmap of their betrayal. But I didn't act yet. I wanted to see how far they'd go. Alex, meanwhile, was living his best life. He'd just announced a groundbreaking new project, a luxury resort on the coast. He'd even convinced a group of investors to pour millions into the venture. "This is going to be the crown jewel of my empire," he boasted during a press conference. "A place where dreams come true." I watched the live stream, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. The evidence was ready. All I had to do was hit send. But I waited. A few days later, Alex hosted a lavish party to celebrate the resort's groundbreaking. He invited everyone, investors, celebrities, even some of our old college friends. I wasn't on the guest list, of course. But that didn't stop me from showing up. I arrived just as the party was in full swing. Alex was holding court in the center of the room, a glass of champagne in one hand and a smug smile on his face. "Mark," he said when he saw me. "What are you doing here?" I smiled. Wouldn't miss it for the world. Then I handed the event coordinator a USB drive and whispered, "Play this." The room went silent as the screen behind Alex lit up. Emails, financial records, photos, everything I'd collected over the past few weeks. The crowd gasped. Alex froze, his face pale. Emily tried to rush the stage, but security stopped her. "What is this?" someone shouted. I stepped forward, microphone in hand. "This is the truth. Alex has been lying to all of you. His empire is built on fraud." The room erupted. People were shouting, phones were out, recording everything. Alex tried to speak, but no one was listening. He was screaming at me, tears streaming down his face. "Mark, how could you do this to me?" I just looked at him. "You did this to yourself." The fallout was immediate. By the next morning, the story was everywhere. News outlets, social media, even industry blogs were covering the scandal. Alex exposed fraud, embezzlement, and lies. Investors demand answers. Alex and Emily tried to spin the narrative, but it was too late. The evidence was overwhelming. Investors started pulling out, one after another. The resort project was cancelled, and Alex's company's stock plummeted. He was forced to step down as CEO, and Emily was fired within days. Alex, meanwhile, was in full damage control mode. He posted a tearful video on LinkedIn, claiming he'd been misled by his team. "I never meant to hurt anyone. I was just trying to build something great." The comments were brutal. "You're a liar. You deserve everything that's coming to you." I didn't say a word. I just watched as his life unraveled. But the best part? The money. Thanks to Sarah's help, I was able to recover most of the stolen funds. The investors even offered me a settlement to keep quiet about the details. I didn't take it. Instead, I used the evidence to start my own company, a legitimate one this time. By the end of the month, Alex was gone. He moved back in with his parents, his reputation in ruins. As for me, I was just getting started. Alex thought the worst was over. He was wrong. I spent the next few weeks quietly building my case. I knew he'd try to rebuild his life, and I wasn't about to let that happen. First, I reached out to some of Alex's former employees. They'd been silent out of fear, but now that the truth was out, they were eager to talk. One of them, a young accountant named Mia, had been fired for questioning Alex's ethics. When I showed her the evidence, she was furious. "He ruined my career, Mark. He told everyone I was incompetent, and I couldn't find another job because of him." I handed her a folder. "Here's everything you need to clear your name." Mia didn't waste any time. She went public with her story, and the media ate it up. Former employee exposes Alex's toxic behavior. Alex tried to defend himself, but no one was listening. His reputation was beyond repair. Next, I turned my attention to his investors. They'd lost millions, and they were looking for someone to blame. I sent them a detailed report, outlining every lie, every fraudulent transaction, every shady deal Alex had made. The response was immediate. Lawsuits were filed, and Alex was facing criminal charges. The final blow came from an unexpected source. Alex's parents had always adored him, but even they couldn't ignore the truth. When they found out what he'd done, they were furious. His father called me one evening, his voice cold and steady. "Mark, I want to thank you for exposing this. We've decided to cut Alex off completely. He needs to face the consequences of his actions." I didn't say much, just thanked him and hung up. The next day, the news broke. Disgraced CEO Alex cut off by family. Alex was arrested within hours. The charges were serious: fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy. He was looking at years in prison. He tried to reach out to me one last time. "Mark, please. I'll do anything. Just help me." I didn't respond. I'd already moved on. A year later, my life looked nothing like it had before. Alex was serving a 5-year sentence, and his once glamorous life was in ruins. His parents had cut him off completely, and his former friends wanted nothing to do with him. As for me, I'd rebuilt my life from the ground up. I started my own company, a small but successful tech firm that specialized in ethical business solutions. It wasn't easy, but I was determined to succeed. And I did. Within months, I had a growing list of clients and a reputation for honesty and integrity. I also reconnected with old friends, the ones who'd stood by me when everything fell apart. Mia, the accountant Alex had fired, joined my team. Together, we built something incredible. But the best part? I found love again. Her name was Emma. She was a journalist I met at a tech conference. We hit it off immediately, bonding over our shared love of innovation and bad puns. She didn't know about my past, and when I finally told her, she didn't flinch. "Mark, you're not defined by what happened to you. You're defined by how you moved forward." Those words stayed with me. One evening, as we sat on my balcony watching the sunset, Emma turned to me. "Do you ever think about Alex?" I shook my head. "Not really. He's part of my past, not my future." Emma smiled. "Good. Because your future looks pretty amazing." She was right. A few months after Alex's arrest, I finally felt ready to close that chapter of my life. I'd built my company into something I was proud of, a place where honesty and integrity mattered. We'd even started a program to help small businesses recover from fraud, something that felt deeply personal to me. Mia became my right-hand woman, and together, we created a workplace where people felt valued and respected. It wasn't just a company, it was a family. Emma and I grew closer every day. She'd moved in with me, and our apartment was filled with laughter and warmth. She'd even started writing a book about ethical business practices, inspired by my story. One evening, as we sat on the couch, she looked at me and said, "You know, Mark, what you did wasn't just about revenge. It was about standing up for what's right. You didn't just take Alex down, you built something better." I smiled. She was right. But the real closure came when I visited my parents. They'd been distant after everything that happened, unsure of how to process the fallout. But when I showed them what I'd built, their eyes filled with pride. "We're so proud of you, Mark," my mom said, tears in her eyes. "You've become the man we always knew you could be." It was the first time I'd heard those words in years. This morning I woke up to a ringing phone. An unfamiliar number was glowing on the screen. "Mark, it's Alex." His voice shook. I went silent. "I've got 6 months left. Prison. It's hell. I want to apologize." I looked out the window. The sun was shining outside, Emma was feeding the pigeons on the balcony, and people were crowding the entrance to my office downstairs. "Apologizing isn't going to change anything anymore, Alex," I said calmly. "But thank you. You've made me stronger." He tried to say something, but I hung up. That evening, Emma and I sat on the roof of my office, drinking wine and laughing about her new report. She was writing about how small stories change the world. "You know what the funniest part is?" She smiled. "You didn't even get revenge. You were just living. And that was enough to make everything fall apart." I hugged her and looked out at the city lights. Somewhere out there was Alex, in his cage. And here I was, free.